Hey there, pre-AP. We've talked about Protista, we've talked about fungi, we've talked about plants. Now we're ready to move on to good old animals. Outline 8.7. So make sure you have a highlighter or a pen. You know it by now. And let's highlight some stuff about some good old animals. Alright, so if you're an animal, you have certain traits about you. So let's highlight some of those. You're multicellular. You're also a heterotroph by ingestion. So, multicellular heterotrophs. You have no cell walls. And you have muscle and nervous tissue for movement and responding to a changing environment. You also exhibit a diploid dominant lifestyle. And what that means is that, of course, we've talked about this before, reproduction is sexual unless you are a bacteria, which you're just binary fission. You grow and pinch and divide, meaning that you reproduce with gametes, sexual reproduction. So highlight that all that means is you have sperm from males, eggs from females, and they are both haploid. And we talked about this in, at the end of meiosis. Those gametes fuse together and it becomes a diploid cell, a zygote. And then over time, that zygote will grow and divide by mitosis. And then it'll eventually develop into an organism. So let's talk about some body structure now. Now some of these in our picture we're gonna talk about all of them at some point, but we're only gonna dissect a few of them. We're gonna dissect a mollusk, a clam, an annelid, which is an earthworm, an arthropod, which ours is gonna be a crawfish, and then a chordata, which is our frog and our pig. So let's talk about different types of body structure. You can either be a parazoa, those are like animals, so let's highlight that, or you could be a eumetozoa, and eumetozoas are your true animals, so let's highlight that. You also want to highlight that why it's called parazoa. Para is the prefix that means like, and eu, like in eukaryote, eu means true. And then, of course, zoa means animal. So we need to highlight some things about a parazoa. Let's highlight the parazoas. Why they are called parazoas, they're like animals, is because they are asymmetrical. Asymmetrical, make you an arrow and write that they have no body shape, which means they are no, because remember, A means no or not, no symmetry. Body shape is another word for symmetry. They don't have a shape. This whole structure here is one sponge. That's not a bunch of sponges put together. This whole purple guy over here, he's one sponge. We can't divide him up into, different places. Like us, we have a line of symmetry that goes down the middle of our body. That means that we are bilaterally symmetrical. Bi meaning two, lateral meaning sides. Or you could be radially symmetrical, which means that, if you think about math, radial, if you think about back in times whenever you had to figure out the radius of a circle, that means that most of those animals are kind of circular in nature. So let's talk about radial versus bilateral a little more. So radial are things like this jellyfish. We do not count the tentacles. We only count this big round head. We can actually divide him up like a pizza. He has one central axis point, and he doesn't have a definite right and left side. He doesn't have a definite front and back, a back and a belly. So if you are radially symmetrical, you have two tissues. Let's highlight that. But please highlight you don't have muscle tissue. This jellyfish doesn't have muscle tissue. And then let's highlight you have something called a nerve net. So you can respond to stimuli, but you don't have complex nerves like us. But if you are bilaterally symmetrical, let's highlight that you have 3 tissues. And then highlight that, hey, you have a nervous system, which is more fancy. So those 3 tissues, we need to know that you have an ectoderm and an endoderm. Your ectoderm actually makes your skin and your nervous system. You also have a mesoderm, which is, remember, meso means middle. That makes muscle, bone, and heart tissue. Remember, your heart is a muscle. And then endoderm. That is tissue that makes your digestive organs like your intestine and your stomach and your liver as well as your lungs. So remember, if you're bilaterally symmetrical, you can actually divide this organism starting at the nose and divide him all the way down the middle in half. He has a right and a left side. He has a head and a tail. He has a belly and a back. So that's what makes him bilateral. We can split him down the middle as well. Just something to help you out. Alright, so some scientific terms. You have to know this if you want to go into anything medical or whenever we're dissecting, you really ought to know these. So highlight some big O terms. So dorsal either means the back of the organism or the top. Just like this killer whale, you're seeing the dorsal side of him. We need to know that ventral means the bottom of the animal or mainly the belly. We need to know that anterior, it's toward the head. So you're always looking toward the head of your anterior. Which opposite is posterior, toward the tail. So, anterior, posterior. Anterior head, posterior tail. Dorsal, back, ventral belly. Got that? Might want to review that with yourself a couple of times. Alright, so we're going to talk about this term cephalization a couple of times with every animal that we dissect. Cephalization, all that means, highlight, it means that you have sensory organs in your head area. This makes you fancy. That means that you have a very well-developed brain, and it allows you to be able to smell, taste, hear, and send out signals to feel, and you can see. So just like this anteater, he has cephalization. He can be able to see, hear, taste, feel, all that good stuff. So on and so forth. So now we come to the coelomates, which tells us what type of body cavity you have. So there are 3 types: acoelomate, pseudocoelomate, and coelomates. So let's highlight these. If you're an acoelomate, remember A means not. You do not have a body cavity, so highlight without a body cavity. It is our first little fella right here. If you're an acoelomate, you tend to be a very small animal, and you actually use diffusion and osmosis to take in as your main transport system. So this is a flatworm right here in our acoelomate, and this is what his body cavity looks like. If you go up and you get a little bit more complex, you're a pseudocoelomate. Pseudo means false. So please highlight that they have a false cavity. These are false cavity animals. And what that is there's a space or a cavity between 2 different tissues. Please highlight, this means that that space is actually filled with fluid, and it's called a hydrostatic skeleton. So let's make an example of that. An example is going to be an earthworm. And then to our last one, these are the coelomates. Coelomates are true cavity animals. They have space within one tissue, the mesoderm, and they have spaces for organs which protect the digestive tract. So let's put an example. We're a coelomate. We're fancy. We're the fancy of them all. Alright, so let's move on to deuterostomes and pardon me. Alright, so protostome versus deuterostome. This explains what part of the animal develops first. Alright, so deuterostomes, let's highlight, there's the second opening animals, and protostomes, those are the first opening animals. So if we look at these, we can see what is going to develop first. So protostomes, go ahead and write these examples out beside there. Those are mollusks, annelids, which is your earthworm, and arthropods. And then deuterostomes. So cleavage, that's where the cells are going to cleave or to cut off. So if you are a protostome, your mouth develops first. If you are a deuterostome, actually your anus develops first. So I would put that out there. So please write that down. And I hate to break it to you guys, but we're a chordate. So that means that we're a deuterostome. So pretty much our anus develops before our mouth does. So, alright, so let's highlight these things. So there's the big differences. Blastula shape. Blastula is this 8-cell stage in mitosis of developing an organism. A deuterostome is radial, and a protostome is spiral. So if you look at these, radial, spiral, and then which one develops first? If your deuterostome is the anus opening, that's the second opening. And then if you're a protostome, it's the mouth, it's the first opening. So, which part of the digestive tract develops first? And then, again, I have those down there at the bottom. And I put in there, sorry, humans. Sorry, guys. Just how we develop. And then, let's go ahead and kind of start thinking about what each body system does. Our nervous system detects environmental stimulus. And of course, it starts with our brain, goes to our spinal cord, branches out from there. Muscular system, hey, movement or moving the organism. Circulatory, highlight, moving oxygen and nutrients throughout the whole body. Super duper important. Respiratory, perform gas exchange. And at that very end, that good old parenthesis, highlight it. O2 in, CO2 out. Somebody will get that mixed up. Digestive system. Remember, break down food to a cellular level so we can get nutrients to those cells. We'll go in more detail later on, but just to get you thinking. Excretory. This is the disposal of liquid waste. So this deals with your kidneys, your urinary bladder, and then disposing of liquid waste. Alright guys, that's it for 8.7. Be prepared for your data set and synthesis question tomorrow. I hope it was helpful.